Welcome back to the C Space Studio here at CES 2025. I am James Kotecki, and I'm joined by Matt Drzewicki, VP Roundel Partner Solutions at Roundel. Thank you so much for joining us in the C Space Studio.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
All right, so Matt, tell us about Roundel. I understand it's Target's media network. What's up? How's it going?
Lots is up. It's going very well. Yeah, like as you said, Roundel is Target's retail media network. We've been around for quite some time. We're not new. Obviously, lots of excitement in the retail media space. Target is someone who is, as a company, has actually been involved and engaged in the space for quite some time. Yeah. Nearly 15 years. Over the last couple years, we've continued to make a lot of advancements, and I really look at Roundel as the stewards or the connectors of the 165 million Target shopper guests, and connecting them with the brands that sell their products through Target.
Does the name Roundel have anything to do with the roundness of the Target symbol, or am I just totally reaching there?
No, you're not reaching at all. Yeah, there is connectivity between the Target bullseye and what a Roundel is effectively.
Okay. Oh, so wait, a Roundel is a noun? Is like a separate? Is a word already existing?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, we'll do a little homework and look that up after the interview and find out more about what that symbol's all about. So tell us about the experience today. And I think it's always important for talking about retail media networks to talk about it from a couple different angles. Yeah. So maybe just starting with the customer experience, the one that we might all understand as we're using things and engaging with advertising that you're serving up. Tell us about what that looks like with Roundel right now.
Yeah, I think it's important to start with the experience that is Target, right? James, I'm going to take maybe a slight leap that you have been inside of a Target store before.
Have been, will be again.
There we go, exactly. And if you think about that, if you think about the brand that is Target and the kind of love that it really exists with the brand that is Target and our guests, as we refer to them.
It means something to go on a Target run.
It does mean something to go on a Target run. And with that kind of affinity and brand love comes a significant amount of trust and expectation of trust that our guests have with the Target brand that really connects through to what we do at Roundel from a media perspective. So we're a very guest-centric, kind of guest-obsessed media company in service to our guests. And so we do things maybe a little bit differently in terms of the way that we think about our offerings from an advertising perspective. And so you see that in in Target.com, you see that in our app in terms of just how we think about a more curated experience from an advertising perspective, because we want to make sure that we protect that guest experience and that advertising is additive to that guest experience and doesn't disrupt that love or joy that folks get by shopping at Target.
And then does that relate to, so we talked about the website and an app experience, does that relate to what's going on in the store as well?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's, again, when we think about the way that we approach things from an omni-channel perspective, in building media plans, we think about that very purposefully in terms of making sure all of these things are connected. Target has one of the, really, I think, the ultimate omni-channel shopper. We have about 76% of our shoppers are in the store with the app open.
Okay.
That number goes up to 90% of our shoppers with a Gen Z audience when you think about them walking through our stores. So you think about that combination of those two things, digital and in-store, it's really important for us to recognize and bring all of those things together.
Yeah, and so then tell me about the brand experience. If a brand comes to you and wants to reach some of these folks, presumably they may already be selling something in Target, but they want to reach them with advertising through your retail media network. What's the experience like for them? Yeah,
so again, we start with the guest in working directly with our brand partners. We're also a company that we work very closely inside of Target with our merchandising partners. And really, we think about a three-legged stool between our merchants, between us as a media organization, and between our brands to make sure that the conversation has all the right people at the table, that we're saying, listen, what are we trying to accomplish collectively in terms of outcomes for the brand's business, and how does that connect with our guest and what's most meaningful to them?
So tell me about being here at CES 2025. What are your goals? What are some of the conversations that you're having, and what's going on here?
Yeah, my goal first and foremost is to make it up these elevators. For those who are not here, it's quite an experience getting up. You have to wait a couple minutes. Aside from that, once we get up to the elevators, I mentioned to you before we started here, our dance card is very full in spending time with many of our large strategic partners who are also here at CES. First and foremost, kicking off the year to better understand what they're trying to accomplish from a business outcomes standpoint as we kick off the year here, and then talking about our roadmap and changes and evolution that we have as a business at Roundel. Yeah. Things like new owned and operated inventory, some new formats on our Target.com site and the app. We've just recently launched a new self-service platform, Roundel Media Studio, which allows our advertisers to directly go in and buy ads from us on our platform, specifically on site search. So that's a big part of how we're spending our time.
So where do you see all this evolving? I mean, in 2025, and we can even look a little bit beyond if you want to, although it's kind of ridiculous to try and plan too far in the future, especially at such a frantically paced place like CES. But where do you see retail media and media evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, personalization beyond, I call it hyper-personalization, I think is critically important. The promise of retail media, when you think about the access to guest data that we have, I think really starts to enable that. So I think we'll continue to see more and more of that, not only just from a targeting reach perspective from a media standpoint, but also when we think about the importance of creative. Target has a very unique approach in the industry in terms of how we do creative. You will always know everything that we do at Roundel has a look and feel of Target. You always know a Target ad when you see it out in the wild.
You know, even as we're having this conversation, I'm sure you could probably define it in terms of the actual words and attributes, but I can totally picture what a Target ad feels like and looks like. I absolutely have some sense of it.
That's exactly right. And that, again, in terms of that brand love that comes with Target and the trust, we have an expectation that everything that we put out in front of our guests has that look and feel. Now at scale, James, that's really, really difficult to do when you talk about us working with 2,000 different brand partners and manufacturers.
Who all have their own standards, right?
Who all have their own standards. And so we have an amazing team. Our second Target headquarters is in Bangalore, India. Our creative team is there, and they have really over the course of the last year, and we'll see a lot more of it this year, utilizing generative AI to help us really make sure that all of our ads have that look and feel of Target, but we can do so in a scalable way.
Tell me about off-platform, where you're investing and where you're thinking there.
Yeah, so Target is one of the things you hear in the industry in retail media, probably sitting here last year is, oh, what's coming? It's like, oh, off-platform is the next frontier for retail media. We've actually been there for quite some time. We recognized very early on the importance of off-platform media to drive traffic to Target.com. So we're very public about 30% of our business is actually through off-platform implementation and execution. We have very close partnerships with Google, with Pinterest, with Meta, with TikTok. All of those relationships involve very specific signal sharing partnerships that allow us to better optimize media through those platforms, but also allow us to measure impact, not just online, but also in our stores.
And when you're off platform, do you have the same standards in terms of look and feel, or could we be talking about ads that don't necessarily need to have that?
Absolutely, same look and feel. Again, you will always have.
So it's still those Target ads off platform.
It is still those Target ads off platform, definitely.
Do you have an example of how this might look from an optimized perspective for a business who's using this? Everything's going right, everything's firing on all cylinders. How does it look when it's done right?
I think Kenvue comes to mind as a great example. This is a company that has some of the the most trusted brands. It was a long time program actually that they had been. It was a build your own first aid kit that they had worked with Target for years and years. I think it was a almost 20-year program that they had been doing, Kenvue and Target. But all executed in store and almost exclusively in store in terms of building a first aid kit at the beginning of the year. We came in over the past year just to work with them to say, listen, what if? How could this look different in a combination of in-store activation along with digital on our platform, along with implementation off-platform, specifically with Pinterest? When we bring all of those things together, it's kind of the cliched 1 + 1 = 3. We actually drove an increase in sales that was significant, about 30% over the previous year.
It seems like that's a great one because if I'm going to buy gauze and Neosporin, if I'm already going all the way to try and create my own first aid kit, and then someone recommends some ibuprofen, I'm like, well, I'm already doing this. I might as well add the other stuff that I theoretically might need in an emergency too. Great use case.
That's exactly right.
Does your Target run feel any different? Do you feel like you're still at work when you go to Target? Like, what does your shopping experience look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been at Target for about 3 years. Prior to that, a long time media background, but exclusively in digital. So kind of coming into a retail environment, I have learned a significant amount about how really the complexity of a retail operation and how our stores operate. And it's wildly impressive as to what happens inside of our stores with our team members that are there. So yes, I walk into that store looking at things much differently than I did 3 years ago.
Well, because for 3 years, as you were just a consumer 3 years ago, all that simplicity that we're experiencing and that kind of seamless idea of what a target run represents is happening because of all the complexity that you're facilitating.
It is, and then you start to understand what's happening, right? You know, the target run today, where you can buy something online, pull up into our parking lot, have a Starbucks delivered to you in your car along with all of your products. It's actually a really exciting time.
Matt Drzewicki of Roundel, which is a part of Target, thank you so much for joining us here in the C Space Studio.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for watching. This is the C Space Studio, conversations with industry leaders in media, marketing, branding, and advertising here at C Space, here at CES 2025, here with me, James Kotecki. Don't go anywhere. More conversations are just ahead.